Get the light in here. Mental health in corrections, in prisons. Where is it? I was looking through, I saw some beautiful charts about what's being done. Colorful charts, graphs, circles, squares, federal prison updates. It's charts. Charts, charts, charts. But are charts being utilized? Is there actually something going on? My background, I come from the Air Force. I was a police officer after that. I was a security specialist in the Air Force around nuclear weapons. And, you know, back in the 80s in the military, you still had some issues to deal with mental health, even though it was peacetime before any war. And there hadn't been any wars. I went in 1985 since the end of Vietnam. So, some issues back then. I got out, retired, got into law enforcement, worked as a police officer, SWAT officer, did a lot of drug investigations and a lot of defensive tactics training. And in doing that, teaching use of force. So I was around a lot of people that, you know, force was used. I saw a lot of violent crime. I saw a lot of murder. After that, I got into corrections, private security, and then into corrections, where I was a sergeant in a level 5 max security prison, which means isolation units. We had about 345 inmates that were in isolation. I was a sergeant in that area. ISO-SEG. We called it Tier 2 down in Georgia. And we had general population. Level 5, 1,050 inmates, about 900, 925, life without parole. So, mental health issues there, many of them. So, welcome everybody, and just kind of want to talk a little bit. You know, I want to do a video later for the law enforcement community about PTSD and dealing with that, but kind of talking about what do you see, what kind of mental health do you see issues. For instance, as a sergeant in isolation and take inmates down to a room, we did a video chat with a psychologist. And of the dozen that I took down there, that turned out to be not such a good idea. Had one inmate just sit there beating his head on a shelf that was in there next to the desk. And I kind of didn't like the idea of putting him right there in the first place. Hello Minnie, hello Lebanon. Welcome. We're just talking about the mental health, lack of mental health in corrections. And I was just telling you, I take an inmate down, the two of us, you know, in isolation, so he's cuffed, he's taken down. And he's supposed to talk to a psychologist over a video chat on a computer. So there was a representative there, video chats, beat his head on the wall, took another one down. And sometimes I was with Lieutenant would handcuff him in the front instead of in the back. While this other inmate's on there, he raised his hands up like this in handcuffs, started to chew on his arm in the middle of his visit with a psychologist. I know, sounds crazy, but this is it. And I wish I could have taken that video down and show him the many things that we saw inside the cell. And I've posted things and posted pictures, but I've seen people cover themselves and eat feces, cover themselves in toothpaste and want to fight, baby oil and want to fight. Walker Vitter 02. I'm just getting started on this video, and you're going to invite all your friends to come and join in for a short chat tonight about the lack of mental health in corrections. So I'm counting on you, Walker, to put the word up really fast, get all of your people, come over here real fast, and tell me what they think about why there's no getting angry on things and worried you can't get in big trouble due to how to overcome. How can you overcome? Well, patience. You know, the star, the pound sign on the phone, 988, for a hotline. Call and talk to somebody. Get some text going on for you. Lack of death penalty, criminal justice, some crazy stories. Yes. Yes, there are crazy stories, and that's kind of what we're here for. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with somebody that covers in whatever? Why are they doing that? You got to figure out why, and then you figure out how to handle that. What do they really need? Sometimes in corrections, they'll do these crazy things, putting stuff, ketchup all over. They'll put ketchup and water and mix it and dilute it, paint the walls and make pretend to be blood. Sometimes it really is blood. Sometimes they cover the floor on blood. If I could give one piece of life, what would it be? Smile and be happy as much as possible. Thank you for that question. The lack of death penalty. There's a lot in working around these people. And I call them people. I'm retired. It's been 5 years I've been out of working in corrections. I wrote a book, Why People Kill. It's on Amazon. Why People Kill, Looking Deeper for Answers. And a part of this, my writing partner, Tim Amdahl, and myself, we avoided the topic specifically. They killed because of mental illness. But I've seen some people that really they're not there. You look in their eyes and look right through them and they're gone. And it's for different reasons. Trauma to their life, maybe over-medicated for many years or drugs over many years. Why you need to call the police, Walker, on your uncle. Call the police. So that's protecting her is more important. Her safety from that type of sexual abuse is more important than a friendship with an uncle. That's my advice. Yes, I'm retired from police and I worked in corrections for 4 years. So then what do you see what do you think about mental health? Do you call them? These mental health people, this is what they did down there at the prison I worked at, Hayes State Prison in Georgia. They've been on the news many times. You'll see a lot of stuff. You Google them. Counselor comes by, and you know who the counselor is? Somebody who's just fresh out of college, and it's a quick, easy job with benefits. And they come, they're brand new. They want to solve the problem, solve the world with counseling. They get hired. As a day shift, I would work 6 a.m., 6 p.m. I started seeing these counselors showing up at real early times or right after the breakfast chow when they knew that the inmates would lay down and take a nap. So they would come by and they'd walk up to the door and they'd be, just knocking on the door right here, on the cell door. And they'd wait. And, when they came in, I had to be in there. Officer had to be in there. No answer. And you'd hear this whisper. Hi, this is so-and-so. Are you awake? Do you want to talk to the counselor? Okay, bye. And they'd walk away and go to the next cell. And they'd give that little tiny knock. And they'd walk through. And they started playing this game. We're going to do this because we're afraid of our job. Guess what I did? When they come in, start to do that, and they come knock on the door, I'd go across the dorm, because it was 2-man cells. I'd go across the dorm to the other cell. I'd kick that door as hard as I could and wake everybody up and yell, counselors in the building. Because they were walking through trying to pretend, knock on the door and leave, and mark on there, inmate was asleep, no contact. What kind of counselor are you that goes and walks through, taps on a door and whispers, hello, inmate so-and-so. This is Counselor Jane Doe, John Doe. You don't get to talk to anybody like that. Boy, they hated me because I just thumped on the door with my boots on, woke them up, and then they had to talk. And guess what? They came later in the day when everybody was awake and there a lot of activity going on. Is that crazy? My question to this, the title of this is where is mental health? I just told you one where the mental health was, whispering and sneaking in the dark when they're asleep. Hold on, Walker. Let me go back. Any tips to get my dad? I'm not going to answer that question, Walker. But I do thank you for joining Walker.Vidor02. And thank you, everybody else. Thank you, Spendy from Ghana. Bad, yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I always appreciate when people tell me what state, what country they're from. And if for safety issues, just make up a state or a country. Don't use the same one everybody else does. Just to kind of give me an idea. Because, as we talk about mental health crisis, we talk about homelessness. The homelessness, now they're passing laws in states. They're kicking people out. From Indiana, welcome. They're kicking people out, kicking people tents out, taking them out, locking them up. So now you're going to have people locked up. I made a video several months ago, maybe 6 months ago, about why people get arrested. One obvious reason is they want 3 meals a day and a place to sleep. Heat and air conditioning. They're hot, they're cold, or they're freezing. They just need a place to sleep. I don't work. I haven't been to Indiana. The only Indiana story that I have for you, Jesse, comes to way back about 1988, 89. And that was when an Indiana State Trooper, a female officer, put me on a traffic stop. And she happened to be like an Olympic quality Taekwondo champion. And the Taekwondo, good morning, the Taekwondo tournament style, she did some sparring a little bit, but it was mostly for points. It's this point, this touch. You're doing all these moves, quick stuff. Touch up here, touch to the head. And they're getting a point, winning by points. Not like normal MMA you see now. Well, she pulls this guy over. This guy had some mental health issues. So this is a great story to tell, Jesse. He's like, well, I did this, I did that. And she said, well, this and that. She was going to have to arrest him. He said, I'm not going to jail. She's like, she's thinking to herself, I'm Taekwondo champion. I got a medal. Well, he's a street guy that had some mental health issues that wasn't going to jail that day. And he did not go to jail that day. He won the fight. Shout out, please. Frosty Games, FNAF, FNAF Frosty Games, shout out. All right, thank you for joining. And also, FNAF Frosty Games, invite some of your game friends, the gamers, to come join in. Tell me a little bit about mental health crisis. Everybody seems to have a family member that's been incarcerated somewhere. I got an uncle, did some time in Montana, did a lot of time in Montana. So everybody's got this. Into the story, Indiana, Jesse, female officer ended up handcuffed to the side mirror of the cruiser. He came by, dropped her drawers and gun belt down to her ankle. So she was standing there half naked, and he drove away. Like, no, officer, you can't arrest me, and I got the power to do this to you. Power is an issue. Power is something that complicates mental health. People with mental health, you're talking depression and bipolar, schizophrenic, paranoid. You start putting some things together. They have this bipolar depression, the paranoid, schizophrenic. And they're combining things in a mental health world. And that complicates things because they combine them faster and they realize these medicines putting together aren't working. You're about to crash out. I don't need because you have Jesus. Great, you have Jesus. That's wonderful. How about a smile then? Thank you for having Jesus. A smile and a laughter, and that makes you stay young, wrinkle-free, because y'all don't know how old I am. Give me a shout-out. HGR, give you a shout-out from. Wait, sir, where are you from, HGR? Who is my barber? Chicken on Biscuits. Chicken on Biscuits, I've seen your name before. My barber is Chuck James Liddell. Oh, really, I cut my own hair. Every couple of days I cut it something different. Why? Because I'm retired and I can do that. Why? Just because. So, mental health. How do you handle an inmate? Inmate covers himself in toothpaste. Takes a lot of toothpaste to do that. Any ghost stories? Maybe a ghost story. Yes, kind of a Mohawk old man. Thanks for that. In my 50s at least. 57. Spanky G-Funk 11. I'll just go ahead and tell you. I'm 57 years old. Yes, I did hear a little bit of plane crash in Indiana. Yeah, but I didn't get to read details. So imagine you're working with me, and we walk over to a cell, and you see an inmate covered in toothpaste. Colgate toothpaste all over the body. I'm not sponsored by Colgate. I just picked that name. One of the popular Colgate Crest Aim. That's what the inmates would buy with their store money. Covered in toothpaste, what do? You call the supervisor. Supervisor's supposed to call mental health. Mental health gets paged. They say, well, we'll be down if you need us. That's the second failure. I told you about them sneaking around the doors, knocking on doors, and being quiet. You would laugh. Nope, this prison was not at the Diddy party. Al Music Gallery, welcome back. I saw you this morning, Al. Great to see you. No, Diddy's got some bad things coming. I don't know where he's at. They're going to be quiet about that. But you got to deal with this. The supervisor comes, you got to put on your extraction gear, which is like riot gear, which you see in my pictures sometimes. I have that black SWAT looking gear. Sabotage, and they were all killed. Now, I'm sorry to hear that. That's, we have prayers go out to their families. But say we call. Yes, thank you, Al Music. Everybody subscribe to my channel. Everybody subscribe. We're going to talk about some medications here in a minute. I talk a lot of videos and talk about corrections and problems. Some good things and some bad things in the law enforcement related community. This morning I talked about why are people attacking officers. And Al was there. We had a great conversation. Talked about a lot of good stuff. And it's a failure of communication. It's a failure of training. It's a failure of partnerships, of resources. And that's kind of what is the failure of mental health right now. It's failure of resources. We would have these guys. I've stood at a door with the officers, with my lieutenant, watching a guy who's got feces all over his wall, wrote bad words that I can't say. YouTube won't let me repeat them. And they're not Christian words. And this inmate's sitting there eating his feces. Now, in the mental health world, they call that pica. I've got a distant relative, little boy that has autism and pica, and he does that. He doesn't know, doesn't understand. But what about when you're 20s and 30s and 40s and the inmate's in there and he's eating his own feces? I mean, eating it like a hot dog. I hope everybody here is not a big fan of hot dogs, but lack of mutual respect. Yes, thank you for that. And I can't see what the name is there. It looks like 3L's son. But the inmate do that. And then we have the hazmat suit, which is like your basic, if you ever go in a hospital and ICU and somebody's contagious, you put that little green suit on over top of whatever. We did that over extraction gear. I've had to go in several times, a dozen times, 10, 12 people covered in feces and urine, and you have to deal with them. You got to go in, hit them with the shield, get some cuffs on them, get control, transport them somewhere, or throw them in the shower. Not throw them in the shower, place them in the shower, not violently, but you put them in the shower, make them shower, and then you go put them in another cell where you strip cell. Everything comes off. They're in a cell with nothing but a mat, pillow and a mat. No pillowcase, no sheets, no nothing they can hang themselves or cause bodily harm with. When MJ McKean did it, a lot of gray areas confusing. I retired there at Music Gallery before any kind of that kind of marijuana substance became medicinal or anything like that. But as far as I know, you're not allowed to have that in corrections. Just like there's a law in all the states, if you're incarcerated, and laugh, please laugh. Give me some funny emojis right now. It is illegal for inmates to have sexual relations with anybody. It's illegal. Even though they're over 18 and they're consenting in an adult prison, the Georgia law states that you do not have consent to have sexual relations. So we could criminally charge them every time they had to allow opioids in jail. That is terrible. Supreme Court allowing opioids. Georgia prison that I worked at was very particular on their pain medicine, and it was non-opioid. It was other. So this became a real mental game. So we're talking about mental health crisis, the lack of mental health. So there's a lack of counseling, obviously. There's a lack of a plan, obviously. And there's a lack of miscommunication for the medication. So they're given these basic medicine. And one of the popular, this sounds crazy, but you know, Our Music Galaxy told everybody a minute ago, subscribe to my channel. You're in Pennsylvania, great. Yeah, talking about PREA here, but nope. Georgia said, nope, you can't, there is none. So that PREA is Prison Rape Elimination Act. Are the worst 23 hours in a cell, poor conditions. Yeah, a lot of that is happening. I was answering a question here and lost my train of thought. Yeah, actually here, throw. Yes. I didn't mean throw. I mean, you walk them down, you open a door, they step in, handcuffs are on, turn the water on. You know, they're getting a warm shower, rinsing as much off as they can. That's what I'm referring to. Thank you for that, Tyler Barker. You know, placing instead of throwing. Yes. Unfortunately, Tyler, being honest, there are times when the inmates just, the door's open and they get thrown head first, bang head first right off the wall, and the shower comes on, or they're thrown in a cell. Give me a cell like that. Yeah, you get it, but it's silly. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Tyler. It is not silly, actually. It's a perfect point. It's a perfect statement, because word for word is exactly how one's account of a situation, and that's how that gets placed in court. Exactly what you say. So if I say we took him out, you know, threw him in the shower and rinsed him off, they're going to think I physically threw him, and they're expecting a medical report for injuries. So that one word just changes the whole equation. Instead of we placed him in the shower, rinsed him off, I had to watch, I would time everything and put that in report. 3 minutes in the shower, and then took him to the cell. Very detailed about stuff like that. 23 hours have been locked down for 7 months, 24 hours a day. That is rough. That is rough. Now, dealing with that kind of mental health issue. So, okay, medicine, that's what I want to tell you. There's a generic form, and it just slipped my tongue. It starts with a D for Depakote. But there's a variation of Depakote. And all the inmates figured out it actually was used as, besides supposed to help with depression, it's used for ED, erectile dysfunction disorder. So imagine giving a bunch of inmates that are claiming mental health issues gabapentin. Yeah, we'll talk about gabapentin in a minute. 5,000 bond and bail on loss of weed in 2018. Beat it because they beat me. I'm sorry to hear that. There's a lot of ridiculous stuff going on like that. Just, they got to just do their job. You know, you place people here, you pick them up here, you place them there, and you just do stuff. Everybody doesn't have to get beat. It doesn't have to happen. The judge has an order, you take them in. So imagine, before I talk about gabapentin, imagine 1,050 inmates, and now all of a sudden 500 of them have mental health issues and are requesting and needing and pretending like things are wrong so they can get on a generic Depakote, which serves as erectile dysfunction. So now you have 500 inmates basically on a 90% equal pill to Viagra. Now tell me that's not how mental health fails us. I'm lying? No, I'm not lying. I'm not lying. Look this stuff up. It is crazy. A lot of meds are abused, and a lot of them are sold. When we did cell searches and we found medication, and what's supposed to happen when the officer escorts the nurse around, whatever they give them, they put it in their mouth and take it right in front of them. Not supposed to have anything. So anything in there was a policy violation, inmate policy manual. So it went straight in the trash. It was flushed. It was flushed. $500,000 bail for 4 ounces of weed. Yeah. That's crazy. Excuse me. Gabapentin was abused a lot. If you don't have nerve damage and you take gabapentin, it'll help you to sleep. It'll help you sleep, but it also, they're abusing the inhalers. Maybe a steroid inhaler. That's kind of crazy, but I'll talk about steroid inhalers next. But I had spine surgery. Our Music Galaxy, I think I explained this earlier. This morning, somebody asked what I'm doing now. I'm retired. Everything went crazy in my life, from powerlifting and strongman and fighting my whole life. And all of a sudden early this year, I just started falling. Everything gave out both legs and go to the surgeon. Less than 2 weeks later, I had a cage and some screws put in my back, put me back together. It just destroyed it, destroyed some nerves. So give me gabapentin. And what it's gabapentin is, I still have, I'm 5 months out of surgery. I still have pain in that site. I got a good scar that's about 7-8 inches long down there for L4, L5 area. And I still feel a lot of nerve damage because that's a big place to cut. Plus they repaired 2 nerves that were severely damaged. And a doctor came out and told my wife that he's like, yeah, he had some nerve problems. He's going to walk. He won't be paralyzed or anything. But like I told him, things are going to change in his life. And the doctor knew, I'm an author as well. I've written 2 books, Officer Perception, Surviving Danger, Why People Kill, Looking Deeper for Answers. Like I said, they're on Amazon. So book writing and talking and trying to teach correction officers how to deal with stuff. So let's go back to this. We got an inmate covered in feces. He gets taken and gets placed in the shower. No injury. Spine and legs, osteotomies daily, and asked if there was something else. Instead, increasing too much, I tried methadone for pain. Yeah, that methadone, the morphine pills, those are kind of shorter action. Our Music Galaxy, again, thanks for joining. Thanks for the support. I'm going to talk about, my wife has a nerve disease. I'm going to do a podcast here later this week, completely different. You'll see it. Please join in so we can talk. But she has a nerve disease called complex regional pain syndrome. And not to get off subject, but it's a nerve disease that's untreatable. It's been around since the Civil War. They used to just cut off limbs for it. And actually we went in 2010, they were going to cut off her left foot. She had foot drop real bad. We went up to the Dellin Institute, which is up there, John Hopkins by the president, paid $1,200 cash to see a doctor, do one test. And he started crying though and hugged me. He said, I can't help you, but you need to get this foot drop up. She got the foot drop up, had a major surgery for that. Very complicated. She's okay now. She didn't take any pain meds, just faith. She gets off that. You had a stroke about a month ago. My whole right body and face are paralyzed. I'm sorry to hear that. You'll be here. Glad. Good. We're going to talk deeply about that. And then just to end this real quick part, not this podcast, but she got into about 12 years of doing ketamine infusions because the ketamine kind of resets the nerve signals, kind of dulls it. Just a medicine that they gave, and we would travel up to Cleveland, Ohio every month. Drive up there, go stay in a hotel, get a treatment, drive back to where I live. And then all of a sudden there's no ketamine. And then you got people abusing ketamine, and now they do ketamine for depression for 45 minutes, and that stuff doesn't help. That makes people feel good for about 2 hours, and then they're right back to dealing with depression and dealing with other issues. For gallbladder disease, Tylenol, ibuprofen before I get them in. Little bit pure gold. Please subscribe so you can see this conversation about pain. And good evening. And it's something that I have a couple friends. I got into politics 2 years ago to try and improve corrections. I'm in Kentucky. I'm in the only state that the county jail is not run by the sheriff. It's a different elected official. So with my experience I almost won. I was going to fix a lot of things, including the mental health. There was no mental health in there in this county jail. Only lawsuits for excessive force and failure to train. So like you said earlier, 23 hours locked up, nothing, terrible conditions. Yes, it's terrible. I wanted to make that better. After I didn't win, I got a job. I worked as head of security and bodyguard and coordinator for a governor candidate. I thought if I get in on the governor level, so I'm doing speeches, I'm around, I'm going to these. Oh, ZC, smile, thank you. So I thought if I'm doing this and I'm working around the governor, I'm like all these high politicians in the state of Kentucky, and I'm trying to talk about mental health. I'm trying to talk about our veterans and our homeless. And you know what? They just blew me off like a 200-mile-an-hour convertible. They pretended, they smiled at me. They didn't want to listen about the homeless crisis in Kentucky. They didn't want to listen to the mental health crisis or the veterans crisis or the lack of mental health treatment. We have in Kentucky 2 state mental health hospitals. I've been there as a police officer transporting someone to have them placed. And I'm telling you, that place is just like on TV. It is bizarre. I mean, it's you see, you know, these men and women walking around and just the craziest look on their face. Craziest look on their face. And in fact, I'm going to do a live next week, I believe next Wednesday. And I'm going to be down Lexington, Kentucky, right by the Eastern State Kentucky Mental Health Hospital. And I'm going to sit up outside. I'm going to talk some more about mental health there from there. But how many times do police officers on the street, number one, start with these mental health patients and from a military family, and it's bad for them? Yes. Yes, the number of suicides are crazy. I made a video, I'll tell you about that a couple years ago and the result of that. But a police officer deals with somebody, and I got to think, Huntington Park incident, and a man was in a wheelchair, I believe, and he had no legs. They were cut off by the knees, waving, and got out of the chair and his wheelchair and went to the officers to try and hack him with a machete, and they shot him. And there was a big outcry. How do you shoot somebody that's mentally health? He had a big hatchet or a big machete. How do you shoot somebody that's missing his legs? Because he had 2 arms and he was swinging a machete. This guy, he severe mental health issues. You know, the officer's got to protect himself. Yes. Nope, ZC, not a dirty cop. Thanks, you were there before, but I guess so I can get your jacket to see why you really retired. I retired, ZC, because I had my 20 years in. Did my 20 years and got out. That's how. So police deal with the mental health issues. They're like, crime's been committed. I need this, I need that. And very occasionally do they deal and call or take somebody to the hospital for mental health. It's pretty much, I need to cuff them, put them in the jail, and get rid of them. And then the county jail gets somebody, and they're like, oh, he's arrested for this. They think criminal charge. Ask him a question. Are you depressed? Or you have bipolar? Are you paranoid? Are you schizophrenic? You see people, you see Martians in a tree. And a couple quick questions, and then they're done. And then they're dealing with somebody in the county jail. Self-defense, even self-defense for cops. Yes, it is. So now they're in a county jail, and they're placed in a cell, a holding cell with 8 to 10 other people. And they're in here. Nobody's asking. They don't realize maybe this person has extreme anxiety disorder, which there are some that's in my family, like everybody. People have panic attacks. They have anxiety. You put them in a small room, it's not the confinement as much. It's not the claustrophobia as much. It's having 10 people that's right there in their face. And then you have a mental health crisis. Officer comes by looking. He's like, yeah, everybody's okay. And here's this guy shaking in the corner, this lady shaking in the corner, and they're having a mental health crisis, and there's nobody checking. Officer didn't take the time. Didn't have 2 officers to open the door, have everybody step back, for safety, open the door, and spend a couple minutes to check on them. Correction officers, I made a live video, a podcast earlier this week, about a week ago, about correction officers, why they're so short-staffed. Many reasons why. We're not going to get into that here. Many reasons why. He had 3 VA turn their back on him. Yes, they do. They will turn their back on him. And lost his leg. When shortly after George Floyd happened, and like I said this morning, Al Music, the officer Chauvin was wrong. He was completely wrong in what he did. And shortly after that, I noticed a huge spike in police officers that committed suicide. So I made a video, and I got to think it was maybe the year 2020 was the year of the George Floyd incident. I believe May the 20th, close in that date. But shortly after that, the Sonia Massey incident. Well, I haven't dug into that really deep to give you an opinion. I'm kind of mixed feelings from what I see really quick. DC cops do care. I've done CPR 18 times to try and save people's lives, and I did save 2. I was able to get there after a long drive and save 2 lives. So a 72-year-old man, and I saved a 3-month-old baby in a wedding that wasn't breathing. So I give myself a thumbs up, a clap, and a couple hearts maybe. Somebody throw a heart at me there for saving the baby's life. Really exciting to do that. So I make this video. Yeah, he did. He took a lot of drugs, and he was high on meth. He had so much drugs in his system that even if he was sitting home in a chair, he had high probability. Thanks for the heart there. High probability of dying by the level he had in, and to resist at the beginning of the car, not get in the car and escalate his own heartbeat, just escalated that to the point of he was going to be no return, period. Medically, he was going to be no return. I'm not a doctor, but I've went to drug schools. I've learned a lot about drugs and meth. I've been in meth labs as a police officer, investigating and getting them shut down. I know what ZC, don't be saying nothing about that. But I was a fair cop, and I did that. I took care of people. I helped people. I started in 92 back when we were here. I go a whole year and never hardly take my gun out of my holster, maybe 1 or 2 times. We talked, we listened. Communication is talking and listening. So, yeah, ZC, I got my heart. When you listen good, you have to use less force. I was a good listener. I got a gray haircut, like it or not, but I got big ears and I hear very well. My hearing is perfect. I had a hearing test last month, and ear, nose, and throat said my hearing is just fine. And I said, that's great. That means I'm a listener to people as well. I don't just hear, I listen. And that's what's allowed me to save people's lives and be an effective police officer. And I trained a lot of people. So I made this video, and in that year, 225 officers committed suicide. So I did a jumping jack, 1 for each officer, and I dedicated that. And I wrote something as like a memorial that my wife read doing this. And when I put that video out, within 30 minutes, there's a comment on that video from New York City. And a man, and I looked it up, I looked the incident up, he told me his dad's name. But his dad is one of those people, and he's like, just like you, training officer, SWAT guy, drug investigator, 25 years on the force, happy marriage, happy life, happy wife, happy family, out of nowhere committed suicide. And he thanked me for making this video and for thinking, and the dedication that I made to that, the struggle. People commit suicide for hundreds of reasons. Really, there's hundreds of reasons. There's not just 3 or not 5. And I disagree with the psychological folks that pull out their textbook and, oh, it's this, it's that. I got this right here, and they're writing down and looking at you under. And I've told them before, because I've seen a lot of death and been around death, I've had to go in corrections and police, hey, we need this, somebody's coming. You guys were at this incident. You just got to talk to them and let them check you out. Yeah, a lot of young guys, they're quick. Men's mental health is important. Women's mental health is important. Mom's mental health. That postpartum stuff. And we didn't deal. I was at a men's prison. But imagine postpartum, and then you're incarcerated. They postpone your sentence until after you deliver, and say, okay, you're going to deliver. They're going to do this September. Probation officers are going to check in. You have 30 days after date of delivery, and then you're going to report and do your 5-year sentence. Gee, that's gonna make somebody, make a woman really, really have a tough time with going to prison. Mike Huffy, hello everybody. Scrody McBooger. Just trying to read some of these names. The Grim Rotten. But it's, the saying goes, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. And these young gangbangers and working down in Georgia corrections, we had a lot of Atlanta blood gangs, blood sets, and these kids, 18 years old, you know, they're middle management in a gang as far as drug distribution and recovering of their money. You know, they're very good at that. 18, 19, 20 years old. 22 years old, they could be the set leader, you know, of that particular area for a gang. You know, they have different sets. And then all of a sudden they're in jail, they're 22. And then their CEO, if you want to say that, CEO, if you will, of their blood set and their gang distribution, maybe making $10 million a year on their block. Now all of a sudden they're in a cell with no cell phone unless they can get it or get their phone call. And they're brought back down to reality that they're a 22-year-old man incarcerated for 20 years, let's say. And then a phone call comes in to the chaplain. The chaplain calls me as a sergeant, says, hey, you know, you're working because I was a police. I've gave death notifications, so he'd always call me. I'm thinking higher ups and rookies are cold towards people. That's unfortunate, but there's a lot of truth in that. A little bit of pure gold. A lot of truth in that, you know, that going to police after retiring, like you said. So now at this 22-year-old, I have to go down and tell him, hey, your grandma died. And then he's got to be this tough guy. And then I come back 5 minutes and 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I make a few checks. Half an hour, I find him in the back of the corner. And all of a sudden, his bed's unmade. His bunk's unmade. So his sheet's missing. So now I'm thinking he's going to try and hang himself. And he's trying to deal with this. He's trying to show off his rank, you know, from his gang affiliation. But now here's the human part coming out of him. You know, because guess what? His mom and dad are gone. Drugs, you know, death, prison, on the street. He's raised by his grandma. So all he's ever known is his grandma. And now his grandma's died. So in reality, the only person that cared about him, that he could count on being there, I have to tell them that grandma's dead. And then you make this notification. And then 2 hours later, I go back and I find that the inmate, I see the sheets tied up on the top bunk. It's down there and it's wrapped around. He's got his bed sheet like this. So I got to call code on the radio and we got to go in. He wasn't prepared for that. He can kill. He can administer pain. He can stab. He can do everything. He can sell drugs. He can human traffic. All of that with not a conscious bone in his body. But as soon as you tell him the only person that's in his heart, his grandma, then that's when things come out. Everything that he's dealt with before has come out. Delusion, just not where you got to go, where you got to stay. Wow. I was innocent in jail twice before. Found not guilty too. So you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And it's easy, you know. You're getting a dorm of 100 people and somebody wants to get at you. All they got to do is turn around and look and say, he's a chomo. He's a chomo. I read his sheet. You know, orderly told me when he came in intake. And as soon as you identify somebody as a chomo, an inmate tells that the other inmate is a chomo, child molester, then they're lying. They can make it up, or really he is. He gets jumped, he gets attacked in the shower, he's going to get beat, he's going to get stabbed. Oh, ZC, thank you. You brought it up. You brought it up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tells you the things that he is. Yes. Uvalde, Texas. Officers get sent down there. You got a police chief sitting behind his desk. You know, and I think that he waddled in there and sat down at his desk and he gets a phone call and he's told about the shootings and the officers go down. And I went to 2 classes about this. And you know, I've been on 2 SWAT teams and riot teams and stuff. Highly trained in special response like this. And here's the officers walking around. This is my lint roller. They're walking around with the guns looking all crazy. They're on video. Get the cell phones out. And this guy's actively shooting people and nothing's happened. And what was it, ZC? They said it was 45 minutes before he told them to go in and take action. That is ridiculous. Everybody involved in that should have been fired and charged. And I think they did, or they're going to charge a couple for failure to act. There's a policy. There's a policy on every police departments. You know, there's a duty to act, and that's the words. As a police officer, you, me, Steve Larson have a duty to act. So in some way, that school shooting in there, I would have had a duty to act being there. And if I'm standing around messing with my cell phone, calling a chief, calling somebody, who knows, and failure to act, that's a problem. Yes, that's corruption. They need to do that. Had them scrubbing the floors, etc. Pleasant for making them make the place spotless. Good for you. So this police chief, ZC, you hear this story, wrong. He's wrong. And it burnt me up. I was so mad I couldn't even concentrate to talk about this on a video for a while. But you know, he had enough nerve. He lost his job. He had enough nerve. He had an attorney to send his attorney. He was scared. But his attorney went to the city council meeting to ask for his job back. Can you believe the nerve of that? Police chief? This is an ugly face. I'm thinking a lot of bad cuss words right now, but I won't say them. That police chief is a disgrace to the uniform and badge, you know, and I swore to protect and serve. And here's a police chief sitting hiding behind a desk. Did not want his people to go in, did not go in, did not even go to the scene, did nothing. And then he's got enough nerve to pay an attorney to go ask the mayor and a councilman, hey, can my little buddy police chief get his job back? I wish I was down there to give him the brachial stunt and knock the dog crap out of him. That's what that chief deserves. And I think he got charged for failure to act. And they'll send him some minimum security. He'll probably be down there with that clown on TV, Chris Lee. You know, Chris Lee Knows Best or whatever. The guy that, you know, financially stole millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in these fake things. They'll put him down there next to him. Then police chief next to the grizzly. I hate that. And every time his daughter makes a podcast or whatever, I say, no, you know, he's not going to get out. He's already found a new wife. So his wife gets out there. It don't matter. He's got a wife. He got a prison wife. That's how things work in there. See, I absolutely can believe it. Yes, you know, we're thinking kind of the same thing. We're on the same side. That is corruption at its finest. And let that happen and I'm saying this and I'm getting mad in a positive way, but thank you, ZC. I got it under control. I got it. I'm not going to have a flashback. I ain't going to punch a hole in the wall. But what it really does is it makes my heart ache for the death, for the children. Children don't need to die because of people can't do their job and the corruption. You know, as ZC, I talked a couple days ago, should teachers and staff, I don't remember if you were on that one or not, but tell me again. Yes, I homeschool. Somebody else homeschooling too. ZC, what is your position? Should school teachers or staff be armed? Should they be armed? If they have proper training from the police, quarterly training, do you still want them armed if your kids are in school? With the gun on the hip, so like 30 kids, high school kids can jump them, take the gun, and you just provided a weapon to everybody is my thought. Should they be armed? I don't know. I homeschool my kids. They're geniuses now. Awesome. Proud of you for that. My oldest I didn't because she was all pre-COVID, pre all this homeschooling conversation. She's in the medical field as a nurse. My other two children, they were homeschooled because all 4 years of high school, because of this COVID stuff and what's going on, anxiety, the nonsense in school. And they're both very smart, doing very well too. Not if trained by the police. That's funny, ZC. That's funny. I was a sniper on the SWAT team, ZC. But I can tell you, no, I did not shoot anybody. People always ask me that question. You were a sniper. Yes. Did a lot of training. We couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That's right. I spent a lot of time as an instructor, ZC and our Music Galaxy there. I did a lot of teaching. I tried to teach people to listen, to be right, the officers to be right, I'm referring to. And then when I worked in corrections, to teach them. That's up to individual choices. Yes, that's an individual choice. I tried to prepare officers as best I could the way I was taught by the older officers. I did what I could. I did my time. And there's the different reasons and personal reasons. It was just time to retire. And part of it, ZC, and if you get this book, ZC, you're going to see where Tim and I talk about corruption in law enforcement and how it bugged me. And that was a part of why I left law enforcement and police. Yeah, guns are like underwear. That's an interesting analogy, and some don't like them at all. The next question, no, nobody's gonna know. No, I did nothing with offense. Illegal. No, I did not encounter that in law enforcement. I retired police in 2008. And then I worked in corrections from 2015 to 2019. I was in private security in between there. But I've seen that recently. FGC 9. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Well, ZC, I'm gonna post a picture. I hope you subscribe to my channel. Watch for a video short. I'm gonna show you. I did a target with a Mini 14 iron sights, no scope, 25 yards. In a prone position. I'm going to show you these two bullets. Printed at home. But getting ready, we're getting close to an hour, so I want to wrap this up. We've talked about some things. I told you a few stories. Talking about radio and too bureaucratic, corrupt, political, plus too many close calls from insane civilians. There's a lot of difficulty. There's a lot of stress. Come on, Klaus. I got a nosy little chihuahua wants to know what I'm doing here. Come here. He got to join. He got to see what I'm doing. It's my little buddy here. But as we wrap up, we're not going to get into the total gun thing. We can do that another day. The mental health officer that sees the bad things and the inmate that sees them and that goes through them, or that thinks about them, or that does cut and carve their arms up. They really don't have the help, and that's why they're doing this. There is a lack of care and concern in corrections. I tried to get involved to make it better. I tried to do my part. I just got shut down political. And you all understand that. You see that. So it's legal, yes. Well, I want to thank you again for being here and joining. Subscribe to my channel, please. Let's keep talking about this stuff. Well, we'll talk about different things. We'll talk about some gun issues, some gun problems, laws, topics that you all are suggesting. We'll talk about that. All right, well, hold on, buddy. Let me see. Ellie, okay. So as you can see, this is therapy. And I was curious if I shut the door, if they would want to come in. This is a good therapy. And there are some prisons. I worked with a guy that was incarcerated in Kentucky and in Ohio both. In Ohio, they had a program with horses. And actually, it's a funny story. Their music gallery. We were supposed to get one from my son, and we ended up with 4. And they're all sisters. So we got a little bit of animals here. But the guy I worked with was at a prison up in Ohio where they had horse therapy. And got to go out and learn about horses and groom horses, and etc. And it turned out to be a great thing. Really helped him, really changed his life. And, You see it on TV, you see the cats, you see animals, see the little stuff like this. This therapy right here sometimes is better than a counselor or better than medication. So on that note, we drastically need improvements with mental health inside and outside the walls. The mental health needs to change. And keep an eye, little bit of pure gold and our music galaxy. Keep an eye. I'm going to announce it. I'll say it that you're subscribed. I'll give you like a hour ahead of time that I'm going to talk about the pain crisis, pain management crisis, kind of as a topic, and how we can deal with the issues like you were mentioning before. Thanks again, everybody. Look at on my profile, you kind of see a little bit of my background, some things, a lot of pictures, what I've been involved in. I'm just here to help. Truth and honesty. Not covering up for any corruption, any bad people. I got into politics. I'll tell you the corruption that actually I left law enforcement completely from corruption, and then I ran for political office to fix corruption. That's a great story for another day. Thanks again. It's 10:09 here Eastern Standard Time where I'm at in Kentucky. I told you. I'm Sergeant Beast Larson. Have a safe night. Pound 988 if you need to talk to anybody. If you need some help, they're always there. That's the National Mental Health Crisis Hotline number. It is critical.